Welcome back to Women's Strength and Bodybuilding. My name is Mark, and one of the most anticipated shows in women's bodybuilding just wrapped up, the 2023 Rising Phoenix. We've got a lot of great finishes to go over here, but before we jump in, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. The Rising Phoenix has all but become the informal women's only Olympia, so if anything, the Rising Phoenix is a precursor to how the placings are going to go at the actual Olympia, which is only about a month away. The most exciting part of this show wasn't necessarily the top two, because we kind of all knew how that would turn out. The crazy parts are just outside the top 2, all the way down to some of the competitors who placed outside of the top 10. So let's jump right in. In first place was Andrea Shaw, and she really is bodybuilding's it girl right now. She was on September's cover of Muscular Development, and I feel like you don't really see that too often nowadays, to have a female bodybuilder on the cover of a legit bodybuilding magazine. She looked great and was her typical self here. Perfectly developed, perfect symmetry, and all the finishing touches we've come to expect out of her in recent years. And in just a few short years, she's really become akin to a lot of faces that have deep roots within the Miss Olympia, including Linda Murray and Iris Kyle. And like I said, if the Rising Phoenix is any indicator of how the Miss Olympia is gonna go, she might be looking at her 4th Miss Olympia title. And get this, she's 39 years old. Talk about hitting your stride later on in life. Not that she looked bad before, but if you ask me to compare her to her earlier shows, there's just no comparison to the beauty and aesthetics she's built up today. Her look is always spot on. Also, she kind of wore a mismatched bikini in the prejudging. It was like a two-tone top and a different color on bottom. That's bold, and I like that. She already knew she was the best. Is anybody really surprised here though? Either way, a big congrats to Andrea on her win, and best of luck on her way to the Olympia. In second place was Angela Yo, or Pro Yo for short, and her career was pretty much put into blast off mode last year when she brought such crazy conditioning to her shows. She looked really good and really freaky here. She was able to make some improvements, but it wasn't enough to put her in front of Andrea. And if you ask me, that's just purely a genetics thing. I think no matter how much more size and conditioning Angela is able to bring, it doesn't really compare, because Andrea brings the perfect proportions, and that's determined by a lot of things: height, weight, structure, density, you know, stuff like that. So unless her physique drastically changes, or Andrea slips and doesn't bring her A game, I don't see these two changing places anytime soon. So there's not too much I can really critique about Angela here. I mean, we're looking at the top 2 women in the world who are going to have another chance to go head to head next month, and I can't wait. Okay, so those 2 placings were pretty much a given, but moving down in the placings is where we start to see some things switch up, and it gets pretty exciting. In third place was Michaela, and I'm like, finally. But just to be clear, I wouldn't have put her higher than 3rd here. Michaela's been on a roll this year though, winning the Tampa Pro and coming in 2nd behind MayLa Ash at the Linda Murray Pro. Michaela is one of my faves, and if you watched my video about the 2023 Linda Murray Pro, you know it was a tough call. I might have put her in front of MayLa Ash at that show, but here it looks like she was able to do it all on her own. I've only seen what's on Instagram, but it's possible that Mayla's conditioning might have slipped a little bit, and if you kept up with Michaela at all, you know those are the opportunities she's watching out for, because she's easily one of the most consistent and hardest working bodybuilders in the game, male or female. She does not mess around at all. She's constantly in the gym, and it's pretty clear that she's decided to dedicate her life to being the biggest and best she can be. So I'd tell Pro Yo not to worry too much about the Olympia, but just don't slip, even a little bit, because Michaela will be right there and ready to take your place. In 4th place was MayLa Ash, and she's a fan favorite for many of you, but honestly I think her conditioning may have slipped a little bit from the Linda Murray Pro, especially in the lower body. She brought a really blended look to the Linda Murray Pro, and here her upper body seemed to overpower her lower body. Her lower body was kind of lacking that really full, tight, and pumped up look, especially in the glutes and hamstrings. From the front, there were a couple of shots where she wasn't totally flexed, and her thighs looked skinny and smooth, but I'd definitely say that it was in the glutes and hamstrings where she failed to maintain her placing with Michaela. MayLa still has a beautiful physique and did a heck of a job, and I say congrats to her on her 4th place finish. Rounding out 5th was Dion, and if you watch my recap of the 2023 Europa Pro just a couple weeks ago, you know she won that show. She looked really beautiful here, and I might even prefer her look at the Rising Phoenix to the look she brought at the Europa. The only reason I'd put her in front of MayLa is because her development in the glutes and hamstrings, and it was consistent with the conditioning she brought to the Europa. But I think even though MayLa may not have been at her best at this show, she still looked really freaky, especially in the upper body, and I guess that was enough to put her in front of Chelsea this time. You might have noticed that Natalia Kovaleva wasn't a part of the top 5 here, But that's okay, because Linda got the crew together, and her, Andrea Shaw, and Proyo ended up getting a girls-only workout session in while they were all together in Arizona. Awesome. Okay, this time we're not just gonna stop at the top 5, because there's some really shocking finishes that you wouldn't expect, even past the top 10. We won't get into too much detail here. I just thought it was worth mentioning. In 6th place was Melissa Teich, and you might remember that I was a big fan of what she was able to bring to the Chicago Pro. She was very much on point with what she was able to do at that show, even down to her suit. My feedback for her was, of course, more size and conditioning, and improving her midsection, and I think she did that. You might be asking yourself, did she hit another stunning most muscular pose? Well, yes, but the photographer didn't capture it quite as well as he did at the last show. You know how you don't really get to choose who you're attracted to? I guess Melissa is just my type. Another surprising finish was Sherry Priami, who placed first at the Vancouver Island Showdown. From the front, I might have even put her in front of MayLa, but the size and symmetry in her back poses wasn't quite there. She still looked great though, and brought one of the better tans at this show, and she kinda reminded me of Annie Rivecchio here. In 8th place was another shocker, Kristina Mendoza. She came in 1st place at the Chicago Pro, and has been on a real upward swing these past 2 or 3 years. She did look a little bit smooth on stage when you compare to some of the other ladies. I'm not sure if she dialed back her conditioning a little bit, in an effort to present more beauty and femininity, because we all know her hubby likes it, and he shows up at her shows to scream that she's his wife, and claim her for his own, on stage for everyone to see. We get it, dude. She's yours. Settle down, guy. In 9th place was Reshanna Boswell, and she won the Masters Olympia in women's bodybuilding this year. She was on point with what she brought to that show, maybe even a little bit better, and I don't know, man. I might have put her in front of Sherry, just because of her development in her glutes and back. I didn't actually have a chance to go to this show this time, so it could have looked different in person. In 10th place was Nicki Chartrand, who came in 2nd place at this year's Tampa Pro. She's definitely got a lot of size. Very big girl. But if she wants to improve her placing, she needs to hone in on her conditioning, while holding on to that same amount of size. Okay, just a couple more ladies I want to point out, that even fell outside the top 10. These next two are OGs. In 11th place was Rene Marven, and it kinda shocked me to see her back in action when I covered her 3rd place finish at the New York Pro. She was a pretty big player in the game 10 years ago, and when I saw her return at the New York Pro, I mentioned I'd like to see her tighten up the glutes and hamstrings, and I think she did that. And she also resurrected her wild development that she has in her most muscular pose, and it was nice to see. In 12th place was Virginia Sanchez, and we've been talking a lot about her on this channel. She's another name that was really big 10 to 15 years ago, and she's been on a comeback tear. She's brought really consistent conditioning to her past 3 shows, and I might have even put her higher in some of her placings at those shows. Here though, it's a tough call. I mean, you have the best of the best on stage, not even the best of the best, because there were a couple contenders who decided not to compete at the show. Imagine if they did. These placings would be even more unbelievable than they already are. So this was a crazy one, and this is exactly why I don't make prediction videos. I know that when Nick's Strength and Power makes prediction videos about shows, he has to come out with an apology video afterwards, because some of the placings he predicted got a tiny bit transposed. I couldn't even imagine making one, seeing how the placings in women's bodybuilding is at least 3 times more unpredictable and erratic than the men's divisions. We saw a lot of 2023 first place winners at this show get bumped outside of the top 5, and a lot of top 5 finishers get bumped outside the top 10, and you just don't see that every day. And it really was a blended mix on all levels. You had a lot of different sizes and shapes, a huge range of ages, and a lot of beauty all in one place. I mean, take your pick out of any of these competitors. You can't miss. And just what I've seen on Instagram, it looks like it was really fun for these ladies to get together and hang out with like-minded women who are all about women's bodybuilding. So this was a fun show to cover, and I couldn't stop at just the top 5. Sorry it's a little bit late. They were pretty late in getting the photos uploaded. But yeah, that's a wrap on women's bodybuilding at the 2nd biggest show of the year. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment about these ladies. Which one was your favorite? And don't forget to subscribe for more great women's strength and bodybuilding content, as we're 4 weeks out from the Olympia.